All right, everybody, welcome back to Rumor Flies. And today we have Shana Mueller from Truth in Advertising with us. Hello, Shana.
Hi.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself or your organization?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us on. So I work at truthinadvertising.org, or TINA.org for short, and we are a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization. And our mission, as the name implies, is all about truth in advertising. So we focus on educating consumers about false and misleading advertising, and we also advocate for them through filing legal actions with state and federal regulators.
Okay.
So we do have a website, tina.org, has a lot of educational information, news stories that have to do with false and deceptive advertising, ad alerts. We also track class actions that are related to false and deceptive advertising. So that's sort of, kind of a quick summary of what you can find on our website.
Okay, and it's truthinadvertising.org, or I think it's also tina.org, and it redirects over to it, right?
But yes, tina.org, because sometimes some people, it's hard to spell truth in advertising.
I like it, Tina. It makes it sound like one very, very, very strict lady that is just watching all the ads. It's cool.
Right.
But anyway, so we're going to start with a few questions for you, some a little bit more in-depth than others, but I think Greg's going to go ahead and start out if you're ready All right, Greg.
So, kind of our first question is, we looked a lot through your website, and in your FAQ, your frequently asked questions, for those who somehow don't know that, you say that tina.org is not affiliated with the FCC, the FDA, really any other governmental body. And you mentioned that you also applaud their efforts when it works and try to fill in the cracks in other situations. Do you have any sort of like dialogue or a working relationship with these government branches? Like, is there a conversation happening?
Yes, definitely. Well, we file complaints and we do sometimes hear back. For example, our most recent action that they have acted on, let me think. So there was, we filed a complaint against an MLM company called Vima that makes energy drinks and supplements. They make healthy energy drinks. And so after we filed that complaint, at some point afterwards, we did hear back from them, and we hear back from the FTC, and they asked us to send them some of the data that we had collected, some of the evidence that we had collected to help build their case. So that does happen. We provide information, and we try to help them once they start looking at it.
And for those who don't know, could you explain kind of what an MLM is?
And MLM is a multi-level marketing company. It's a company where instead of what they say is that instead of spending money on marketing, they have the money goes to distributors who market the product, let's say via word of mouth. And so it's really exploding right now because of social media. So it's a great way to basically recruit people to come join your business. And so it is an area that I would say it's a specialty area for us. We have a lot of experience. We get a lot of consumer complaints because a lot of what we do is based on consumers who, send us tips or file complaints with us. And we get a lot of consumer complaints in this area. So it is an area that we're very active in.
Would
Because unfortunately, some of the companies that are pretending to be legitimate multi-level marketing companies are actually pyramid schemes.
Yeah, I was about to ask that. Would you consider multi-level marketing to be synonymous with both a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme?
No, that is not the position that we take. And certainly there are a lot of MLM critics out there that do take that position. We do not, but we think there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. So there are a lot of pyramid schemes, sorry. There are a lot of MLMs that are disguised
Oh, okay.
as legitimate MLMs.
Okay, so there can be legitimate ones, but lately they've been seeing a lot of pyramids that just look like MLMs.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, I guess it's a good start for that one. That one's something that I was kind of wondering about. I guess a real quick question, especially for these MLMs, what would you consider to be some key terms, or I guess the advertising world, it's called weasel words, that's seen as, that should immediately alert a consumer to deception, whether they're trying to be pulled into one of these type of schemes, or say that you deal with a lot of things like medications or supposed medications, or
Right.
any of these diet pills, or a whole plethora of things, or possibly even the way a car is being sold deceptively for how much you're actually going to be paying for it. What are the words that you have seen that are at the top on your list to start actually asking questions about that company?
Right. So in terms of MLMs, you mean?
Yes.
So in terms of MLMs, we focus on two different areas. We focus on health claims, unlawful health claims, and we also focus on income claims. It's actually very difficult to prove that a company is a pyramid scheme because you have to have access to all kinds of data that, we as outsiders looking in don't necessarily have access to. And so that's why, it takes sort of government action to go in and pull all their records. But what we can see is that one of the hallmarks of a pyramid scheme is an emphasis on recruitment over product sales. And so when we see a heavy emphasis on recruitment and really outrageous income claims, that's a huge red flag. And then the other thing that we look at very carefully is deceptive health claims. So, if some of the MLMs that we're investigating right now, they make claims that their products can do everything from cure baldness to cancer to fibromyalgia to arthritis. I mean, they're cure-alls. They're represented as cure-alls, which is, ridiculous.
Do you see a lot of stuff that like claims to cure things that like might not even be real issues? It's like super psychosomatic. It's not an actual like diagnosed thing.
I might be a little bit stretching here, but the whole restless leg syndrome thing sometimes comes off as hard to believe, but apparently it's a diagnosed thing. So,
Well, yeah. So, what they're not allowed to do is claim that because these are not, obviously they're not FDA approved drugs, right? They're supplements. They're nutritional supplements. And nutritional supplements per FDA, nutritional supplements are not allowed to claim to treat, cure, prevent, or mitigate the symptoms of a disease. Because once a company starts doing that with their product, then it is a drug, and therefore it must go through clinical trials and be approved by the FDA.
Okay. One last question before we move on to Josh's and switch gears a tiny bit. We'll come back to some of this, but for some of these companies that Greg was asking about, your dialogue between the FCC or any other regulation.
But mostly we communicate with FTC because the FTC is the agency that is charged with consumer protection, and they're the ones that look at advertising. I mean, the FDA does regulate some advertising, mostly drug advertising, prescription drug advertising, but pretty much almost everything else falls under the purview of the FTC.
Right. I think I had a little slip. I said FCC possibly. But concerning the FTC, when you are speaking with them, have you ever had situations where you try to communicate with the infringing company first before going to the FTC?
We almost always go to the company first because, as part of our mission, we're not trying to be anti-business. And we think marketing is important. That's how people learn about new products. That's how they learn about the product benefits. So we're not anti-marketing or anti-business. And so almost in all of the complaints that we have filed, we almost always go to the company first.
Okay.
Very few exceptions. So we go to the company first. We give them some advance notice. We usually write to them, send them something kind of like a warning letter. We say, look, this is what we found. This is a problem. You need to remedy this. And we give them a deadline. And so at that point, either it opens up a dialogue with the company, or sometimes the company just ignores us and we just go straight to the FTC at the end of our deadline. And other times we work with the companies to try to get them to basically just follow the law.
Okay, I like that policy.
Right.
Josh, you ready to switch it up before we get a little bit more serious again?
They're not cooperating, or they're just stalling us, or ignoring us. Yes, then we go ahead and file that FTC complaint.
All right.
So I have a particular question when it comes to the actual advertisements. How does Tina feel about like the sped up fine print? When you see an advertisement and you hear somebody all of a sudden, like the auctioneer house guy who's speaking real fast.
This part is not guaranteed.
Yeah, basically that. I mean, do you guys look into things like that, or what's your
that at all? No, we don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, we have talked about filing a complaint, especially on television, where it goes by. It's super small fine print. You can't read it. It goes by super fast, or like you said, they're talking really fast and can't understand them. And that, what they are doing is they're providing a disclaimer. And the FTC has some rules about disclaimers, and the disclaimers are supposed to be clear, or disclosure. A disclosure is supposed to be clear and conspicuous. So, obviously, when it goes by super fast or it's super tiny, that's not clear and conspicuous.
No, not at all. No.
And obviously, when they speed it up like that, you could use the argument, I guess, that, they're paying for this much time, so they're trying to get as much possible into that time, which is kind of weird that would even be a legal thing in regulation. But I feel like if they're speeding something up that much, it's clearly something they don't want you to hear outright, but they need to get it out there anyway.
Right. And there are rules also about disclosures, you can't make a claim, let's say in an ad, right? You can't make a claim and then negate that claim in the disclosure. Yeah. So a disclosure should never, what they call in the FTC language, that what they say is a disclosure can never cure a false claim.
So you got to have some creative writers actually writing the commercial if you're going to have that disclosure afterwards too.
Right.
To dance around what they're actually saying. Okay.
We actually just went to a conference. We went to an FTC conference 2 weeks ago, and the whole workshop all day was about disclosures. And a lot of the talk was about privacy disclosures, interestingly enough. And there were researchers there who had done all kinds of experiments and eye tracking experiments and things like that. And, sadly, a lot of the data revealed that consumers often don't look at those disclosures.
I don't.
Part of that is because they're so long and confusing and really difficult to read. So I think there is some impetus to make those a little simpler.
Well, that's kind of like the pre-90s nutrition facts where they used to get away with putting like the chemical makeup of the various things, and eventually, they had to put accurate things like calcium, protein, fat, carbs. Like, wasn't that like during the Clinton administration that happened? Or am I making that up?
It's still now. For example, with sugars, right? So, sugar is evil, sugar is bad now. So people are trying to come up with some creative names for sugar. So we see a lot of class actions against
turbinado. I remember one of them being.
Oh, no, evaporated cane juice.
Oh, okay. I like that one.
That is awesome.
Right. So, and then what they'll do is they'll have all these different names for sugar and then try to count them all separately. But yes, evaporated cane juice. We've seen a number of class actions and lawsuits related to evaporated cane juice.
Yeah, because I feel like if I read that, my knee jerk would be, that must be distinct from sugar. Like if I read that, I'm like, well, there must be something different about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there's been a big lawsuit over the term corn sugar as well. Because the corn industry, so they don't want to say high fructose corn syrup, right? Because so many people are sensitive to that term. So they want to use corn sugar instead. So
that's interesting. Huh. So, so another question just kind of goes a little bit back to what you're talking about. You said earlier, y'all really like to emphasize, I saw it a lot on your website. Y'all are very, very big on emphasizing how you're not anti-marketing or advertising, and you definitely see its value, and you're even entertained by some of those commercials out there.
Right.
So have you ever nevertheless, do y'all worry that you could potentially foster a bias or hostility towards advertising and marketing? And have you ever really seen that happen, whether internally or in your communities that, support your site? Just how have you seen that develop or anything like that?
Well, I mean, internally, obviously we look at it, we're biased in that we look at it from this consumer protection standpoint. So we're very sensitive to, was that not clear? Was that, are they trying to fool us? Was that fine print too small?
Sure.
Is it a negative option offer? So obviously we're examining ads very, very critically, more so than your average consumer probably. But yeah, we do like ads. We watch them all day long. We laugh at them and we're entertained by them. And, it's interesting that the different personalities in our office have sort of preferences. I like the high production value ads. Laura Smith, our legal director, she likes the, sappy mom ads. So, we kind of each have our own types of ads that we enjoy and like. But yes, we definitely look at them with a critical eye. There is definitely other organizations out there that are probably more critical, and I guess we're just trying to distinguish ourselves in terms of we're not anti-business. There are other organizations that are they equate marketing with capitalism, so they're anti-capitalism, anti-marketing, anti-business, and so that's not who we are.
So Tina's more of trying to make marketing better by weeding out the bad marketing first.
Keeping ads honest. So.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's much easier than what I said. So I guess my next question is, you mentioned about how a lot of supplement companies say that they have to watch out for what they say, or else it becomes a drug, and then it is subject to lots of regulation by the FDA. Now, with that being said, what weight does an FDA approval actually hold nowadays? Since, I mean, essentially, if you really wanted to sell something, you can still advertise it even though it's not approved. You can still just go ahead and fast track it and not have to worry about any of this. And to most consumers, they don't even, realize what an FDA approval means.
Right. Well, but the thing is that the concern is there's the FDA approved drugs, and then there are the supplements, which the FDA does not do any sort of pre-approval for supplements. And that's because of what is known as DSHEA, which is the Dietary Supplement. Wait, I'm gonna have to look it up. Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994.
Okay.
So under DSHEA really only says that there has to be a two-part disclaimer on any sort of supplement, and that disclaimer says these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
So I guess tangential to that, I assume that the FDA has a certain list of things where if it has this ingredient in the supplement, then it has to be considered a drug. But
Right.
Okay, so you're saying that, say that somebody wanted to make I guess this is relevant right now, a cheaper version of the EpiPen, but didn't want to have to get it caught up in all the red tape. They couldn't just say this is the possibly helpful for diabetics pen, or for people that have allergic reactions pen, or,
Right.
or even for insulin, something like that, where they can just, it would be a good intention that they want to sell it for cheaper and not have to worry about the FDA, but at the same time, it would be dishonest because it is still a drug at that point.
Right, it is a drug. I mean, if it has, so for example, this comes up all the time with erectile dysfunction drugs. And it's interesting because some of them, so the ones that we see that are advertised that get busted by the FDA is precisely for that reason, is that they actually contain the active ingredient of Viagra. But they claim to be the natural cure. They have all kinds of funny names, but they actually contain that active ingredient, which is regulated by the FDA for a reason, because it increases your risk of heart attacks or cardiovascular events. So there's a reason why it is regulated and needs FDA approval. But then there are all these companies that are selling natural or low cost versions that actually have that ingredient in it, but they represent that, oh no, this is the natural version.
Okay. No, I think that kind of makes for a nice segue into my next question, which would be is what is your stance on natural versus organic? Is there such a big difference in marketing, or like Tina's stance on it, or anything like that?
Or even legal definitions.
Yeah, or even a legal definition, yeah.
There actually is. I mean, that's the thing, is that organic actually has a legal definition. It is regulated by the USDA. And so there is a definition for organic. Natural, on the other hand, is a completely meaningless term. It's used all the time, but it doesn't actually have a very strict definition. And in fact, I think the FDA right now has put out a call for comments from the public, asking for the public to provide some input on, oh no, not natural, it might be healthy. I have to look that up. I just tweeted it today. I remember it, but it's jumbled in my head now, whether it was natural or healthy. Let me look it up real quick.
But that's kind of the point that I'm making, is that, you know, if somebody says something's natural or somebody that says something organic, I mean, to me, it basically seems like they're implying the same thing.
Sorry, it was healthy.
Healthy.
The FDA wants to know what you think healthy means.
Okay.
So I guess they have a binding term for organic where you actually do have to meet criteria in order to put it on there. But just saying natural, I mean, it could be anything, and you could just say, you know, it's natural plastic, and they'll
Right.
go ahead and not question you whatsoever because nobody has put a definition on it.
Yeah, they don't. So they have not defined the term natural. They haven't objected to people putting it on, and so they kind of loosely say as long as it doesn't contain added color, artificial flavors, or synthetic substances. But it's there's not a good strict definition, and so everyone's using it because it's a great marketing ploy.
Yeah, it works very well, clearly. Ask any bodybuilder.
Yeah. True.
Right. Yeah. So it is, but whereas organic does have a legal definition.
Right.
My next question has to do with where's the line between this is false advertising and caveat emptor, you know, buyer beware, begin and end? Do you have like some sort of metric or list of questions you apply that helps you determine where like when a consumer is responsible about what they buy versus the possibility of them being deceived?
Right. So I would say that when we look at an ad, we look for certain red flags. So we have a section on our website called Deceptive Marketing 101, and it outlines some of the tactics that we see being used and that really do, you know, deceive or confuse or mislead consumers. You know, some of the examples would be made in the USA. That's something that we have looked into quite a bit. And we even, you know, basically busted Walmart on this. So made in the USA is a very profiting tactic because plenty of studies show that people love to buy made in the USA, they want to buy American-made products. And not only do they want to buy American-made products, they're willing to pay more for products that are labeled made in the USA. And so unfortunately, there are companies out there that use that label that, you know, are not using it properly. And so, you know, so what is the burden on the consumer, I guess, for made in the USA? They're looking at a label and they're expecting when something says made in the USA that it is, right? They're not expecting it to be made in China or Korea. For example, and that is kind of what Walmart was doing. They were labeling products on their website on Walmart.com. They had stickers on the products, stickers that said "Made in the USA." And our investigation found that there were many products that were actually mislabeled, that were not made in the USA.
Now, what about the flip side of that with like frivolous lawsuits by the actual consumers, like Red Bull gives you wings? I mean, we all know Red Bull does not actually give you wings, but I mean, there was a lawsuit that was brought up about that because, you know, somebody mentioned that was false advertising.
Right. There was a lawsuit, and actually we wrote about this. So it wasn't about the wings. I think all the media focused, and maybe that was Red Bull's way of spinning that. All the media centered on, this is so ridiculous, of course, but that's actually not the claim that was the heart of the matter. So this all had to do with a class action lawsuit, a few of them actually. And in the lawsuit, the people who filed the lawsuit said that Red Bull was falsely marketing its drinks as superior to other cheaper caffeine-only products, and that basically they didn't have credible and reliable scientific evidence to support these claims.
So it never was actually about, you know, Red Bull physically giving you wings.
It was about those claims. So some of the claims that they did not have scientific proof to make these claims: increases performance, increases concentration and reaction speed, improves vigilance, stimulates metabolism, makes you feel more energetic, and thus improves your overall well-being. So it really wasn't about the wings. They did settle, and I think they sent refunds. It wasn't too long ago. It might have been last year when people were starting to get their refunds. I think the media focused so much on the wings aspect of it, but that's actually not what it was all about.
Okay, now I guess that
There's definitely absurd ones, right? There's
Yeah.
definitely some crazy.
right. Well, now has Tina ever had to retract or backpedal on a complaint? You know, whether legally or in print or anything like that.
We haven't had to backtrack, but sometimes we'll send a warning letter, and we have companies who then we're working with. We have had to withdraw a complaint because of compliance from the company.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the good thing. You gave him the chance first.
Complies, yeah. So we've had a situation. I can't remember the exact details, but we did have a situation where we didn't hear from them or they weren't cooperating. We sent the FTC complaint, and then they did comply. And they actually went through and removed everything that we told them was misleading or false. And so then we went ahead and contacted the FTC and let them know that we were withdrawing our complaint because the company had complied.
So it wasn't a situation more of eating crow, and it was more of they actually took the steps necessary in order to, right the wrong.
Right. I mean, we try to be very, very, very careful, obviously. But we do have companies where we have differences of opinion.
Okay. It's more of a subjective thing, I guess.
Well, for example, we recently filed a complaint against the Kardashian-Jenner family, as well as, I think, a list of about 30 companies about disclosures for Instagram posts that the family members were posting that are basically ads, Instagram posts that are ads.
Oh.
And so, when we sent the warning letter, we sent it to both the family's attorney as well as to all those individual companies. And some of the companies, as far as we know, were very cooperative because the family members went in and changed the post immediately. And there were other companies where the posts were changed. Our legal director did have a conversation with Estee Lauder, and Estee Lauder took the position that hashtag KJ4EL was sufficient disclosure that Kendall Jenner's posts were ads.
So what does that hashtag mean?
I know. Well, do you know what it means?
I know the KJ, but
Yeah.
That's about it.
I don't know the rest.
It means Kendall Jenner for Estee Lauder.
Oh, wow. That's clearly sufficient.
So we
Okay.
disagree.
Okay.
So
All right.
we reported that.
I guess tangential to the whole Instagram thing, I know there's a whole lot of debate, especially with YouTube being more important in, I guess, social media and culture in general, that there's been a lot of, I guess, something that I'm familiar with is I've seen a lot of people that do like Let's Players for video games. They'll be playing this game and talking about, oh, this is great at the end of it, but at the same time, they don't disclose that they are paid off by the company to play that game in front of a very large audience potentially, and then influence them to buy that game.
Or as
Only
simple
recently
as
have they been
getting free
revealed
copies
to.
all the time too.
Yeah.
Can be as simple as that, doesn't it? Yeah.
So I guess it's along the same lines. Have you seen anything going on with like I guess YouTube personalities or anything going on that front of advertising? Because it's pretty genius advertising. You don't even know you're getting an ad sold to you.
Right. Yes. Well, definitely. And this is an area that, we are now focusing on. And we know that the FTC is focusing on. They've taken a couple of recent being the last year or so, that deals with what they call influencer marketing, native advertising, sponsored content, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if you've heard of this one, but just this past July, Warner Brothers settled FTC charges over gameplay videos, and the YouTuber who they hired apparently is very famous. His name is PewDiePie.
Yep.
We're aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they paid him, to, I guess, play that game. And the game was Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor.
Good game, by the way. Warner Brothers did not pay us to say that.
Right. They paid him to play that game, and there was no disclosure. And the FTC, the video was viewed more than 3.7 million times. And apparently he was paid, a lot of money for that. So they got in big trouble.
So what I actually saw his response video to that, and this is completely off the wall. We didn't have this in our docket at all, but
Right.
it's off the wall. I saw his response video. He said that the disclosure was there. It was just if you click the more information section on the video, like the pull down thing where it gives you like the complete set, it says I was sponsored by Warner Brothers. Now,
Right.
I don't know if he had like archived. What's that?
That was not that's not good enough because the FTC came out with some rules about endorsements, and what they said was that it has to be this is the back to that clear and conspicuous, and so you can't be in a pop up or in a pull down or somewhere where the consumer has to look for it.
Okay.
Where the consumer can't miss it.
So how does that fall on Warner Brothers then?
Well, generally, the FTC has gone after the companies involved because they're the ones that are paying the advertisers. They should know better.
Okay.
They have not taken action in the actions that they've taken when it comes to influencer marketing. They have not gone after the individuals themselves, but we actually think it's about time they do because some of these individuals, like for example, the Kardashians, are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from doing this.
So what you're basically saying is that, you can't claim ignorance in this. Since you're getting paid such a large amount of money.
This isn't just like some, little blogger who didn't know better.
Right, yeah.
There was clearly some legal papers involved with it.
Right. If this is your career, then you probably should know a little bit about what those disclosures are supposed to look like and what's legal and what's not.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess jumping onto those last two things isn't a little bit not as close, but the last question I have will be. The next question is, what would you consider the most dangerous form of false advertisement in terms of which field or which tactic, like which one really needs to be addressed the heaviest? Because you have something where somebody is being ripped off by the fact that they are paying more for a certain car as opposed to they're paying for some homeopathic remedy that is being sold on a website. What do you consider is the one that really needs to be addressed the most?
Health claims are definitely very dangerous because in terms of people gambling with their health and thinking that some sort of supplement would cure them. So not only are they potentially wasting their money, spending, a lot of money in some cases for these cure-alls or these supplements that are supposed to help them with their diseases, but they're also delaying getting real treatment, which could be fatal.
Yeah.
So health claims are very concerning to us, and we see them being used across the board.
Would you consider diet pills to fall into that category?
Sure, yeah, diet pills too.
Okay. I guess we're going to wrap it up with something a little bit, I guess, fun, depending on how the answers go with this one. On your website, tina.org or truthandadvertising.org, you have a wall of shame for many different advertisers that you think are some of the least honest or at least the best at lying and then get caught.
And we've been neglecting that. We need to add more.
Okay, well, if you want to give us a preview, who would you consider to be your favorite wall of shame members?
Oh, goodness. It's so hard. There's so many. Well, one of my favorites has to be this guy, Kevin Trudeau.
Who?
Kevin Trudeau. Now, he's not a celebrity, but he was, I guess, kind of his popularity crested in the 2000s. But he has been busted by the FTC over and over and over. First, he was selling supplements. He was selling something called, I think he was involved with something called coral calcium. So then they busted him and they said, no more selling products. So then what he does is he decides to sell books instead. So he starts selling books. And one of his books was The Weight Loss Cure They Don't Want You to Know About. And he used infomercials to sell them. So he sold that book. Then he sold another book about, health. I don't remember the exact titles, but it was similar, sort of like health cures they don't want you to know about. And so it's just funny because he basically he could not stop making deceptive claims. He just couldn't stop. And he even created a pyramid scheme called the Global Information Network. And so the FTC kept going after him. Finally, at some point, they were able to get a $37.6 million. They had ordered him to pay. The court had ordered him to pay, but he claimed that he didn't have any money and he was broke. Meanwhile, he was living in some, lavish mansion in Switzerland, and he is now in jail. So a jury found him guilty of criminal contempt, sentenced to 10 years for making deceptive claims, and so he's just, yes.
Something tells me he would not do well in a casino.
right. But and he still, I recently, not too long ago, saw this jailhouse interview with him, and he thinks it's all a conspiracy, of course.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Just, like I said, do well in a casino, just eliminate all culpability.
Right.
I guess.
And I can't but not mention Dr. Oz.
Yes. Okay. We recently did an episode on Dr. Oz
so badly.
Oh, we were waiting for you to say that.
Right.
I can follow that up with a question. Dr. Oz does not sell any products, correct?
No.
But
he does not.
He has people on that represent these potentially snake oil-ish products, and he doesn't have any sort of retort or anybody on the other side of the fence to really debate them. So
right, definitely giving some of these shady characters a platform.
Yes.
So it's more. What would you consider that? Is there any way that could be brought up against him? Because it's not like he's actually making profit by selling the things, but he's clearly complicit in people knowing about it and at least trying it out.
Right. And that's why I don't know if you ever saw his congressional testimony. He was hauled into Congress, and it's definitely worth watching because they grilled him.
It's spectacular.
It is. Yeah, they grilled him, and he had nothing to say. I mean, it's worth watching just to see them ask. Claire McCaskill is amazing.
What ended up becoming of that? I mean, they pretty much just publicly shamed him and just slapped him in the face and sent him home. Right,
pretty much, yeah. But some of the companies that he promoted on the show, promoted meaning, gave a platform to on a show. Some of those companies have gotten in big trouble. The Green Bean, weight loss. I want to say the green bean machine, but that's not what it is.
Green coffee bean extract, I believe.
Green coffee bean, also Garcinia cambogia. And so I kind of briefly mentioned that we follow class actions, and there's also a lot of class actions that have to do with products that are featured on a show.
Wow. So I guess that's kind of like hey, what can we take a look at today? And then you just turn on Dr. Oz and just start from there.
Right. I know it's very sad because, he does have such a popular show that so many people watch, and he is a trained physician. He's got great credentials, and yet he has these people on his show that clearly he's not vetting very carefully, and they're taking advantage of, hundreds of thousands of consumers.
Yeah. So I guess that was the real tricky question because, you can't tell what's truly in Dr. Oz's heart, whether he's being taken advantage of by these people and he's just really bad at doing character profiles, or he clearly is in it with them. But I don't know. There's nothing that can prove that one way or another unless you get some, phone calls in between them. But I was just interested on that little side of it because, technically it's not an advertisement, but at the same time, it's totally an advertisement.
It's a thinly veiled endorsement.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if he paid them to come on to the show.
Right. Well, I don't know exactly. I don't know about those financial dealings, but
I wonder who pays who.
Yeah.
Because what we notice is that there are gazillions of sites that claim to have Dr. Oz endorsements. And, I guess a lot of people don't realize that he actually doesn't endorse individual products, specific products. And so there are a lot of these fake news sites and fake websites or sites that have these fake endorsements. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll have a little clip of him when he had that product, when he mentioned the product on the show, and they'll just take that clip out of context, show a very, very small clip, and they'll say, yes, this is the product that Dr. Oz says will cure your, whatever disease, blood pressure. So.
That's our favorite type of clip that goes around on YouTube and Facebook a lot, clearly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're done grilling you for the day. Thank you very much, Shana, for coming out. This has been great.
I know. I hope I gave you some of the information that you needed. I mean, we have so much on our website. It's hard to keep track of, and that's really because we're looking at everything when it comes to fall, everything except for political advertising, which we don't do at all. Everything other than that, we are trying to sort of get a handle on. So,
and we very much appreciate and applaud that effort.
And the last thing before we let you go is
we never run out of things to do.
The last thing before we let you go is just one more time, let people know how they can, get in contact with you or, find more about Tina and everything like that.
Right. Well, come to our website, www.truthandadvertising.org or www.tina.org. Like I said, we do a lot of the actions that we take, and a lot of our investigations are based on consumer complaints. We look at every single one of them. We don't act on every single one of them, but we definitely look at every single one. And so we do have file a complaint form on our website. We have a contact form, and we also have an alert us. And so if you've been affected by false or misleading advertising, or someone that has, let us know so that we can warn other people and help other consumers.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Greg, you want to stop the recording?
Yep.